join me in welcoming Greg Peters.
So yes, my name is Greg Peters. My company is The Reluctant Networker. And I have a confession to make. I'm a nerd. It's true, it's true. Before I started teaching people about connecting with each other, I was a computer programmer. I don't know if you know many computer programmers, but if we're feeling particularly extroverted, we're looking at your shoes when we're talking to you. But my nerdiness didn't start there. Actually, I went to college to be a mathematician. And if you know any mathematicians, you know that we made the computer programmers look like social butterflies. But it didn't start there. No, you have to go back further and further. You have to go back before I started collecting comic books, before I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, all the way back to my 10th birthday, when my dear mom sent me down the dark path. She gave me as a gift my first science fiction novel, A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And I have been a lost soul ever since. In fact, I am still a science fiction fan. If you should run into me over Labor Day weekend, we are down in Atlanta, Georgia for the Dragon Con Science Fiction Convention. Yes, Dragon Con, just me and 60,000 of my best friends rocking out with Captain Kirk and the Incredible Hulk. I'm not telling you this just so you can, oh, someone here is like, that'd be cool. I'm not telling you this just so you can laugh at me. I'm telling you this so that you can understand that no matter how bad a networker you think you are, I was much, much, much worse. And you'll hear a little bit about that tonight. But the thing to think about right now is that in the next 45 minutes or so, you will pick up the tools, some of the tools, to help you feel like a more confident networker. And we're going to do that by looking at the techniques and the tactics that you need before, during, and after the event. We have a lot to do, so we're going to jump right in. Before we get into it, though, we kind of need to have an agreement of what networking actually is. Doing what I do, I've heard a lot of different definitions of networking. Probably the most common one I've heard is that networking is sales. Go to a networking event and you are trying to find prospects to buy from you, to buy whatever it is you're selling. People who believe that, when they walk into a networking event just like this one, what they see is a flock of sheep. And what they want to do is separate one from the flock and shear it. Now, some people may be successful doing that. But I think that walking into a networking event and expecting to walk out with a signed contract is kind of like walking into a singles bar and expecting to walk out with a wedding ring. It's not real likely to happen, and even if it does, probably not going to be a happily ever after. And I apologize to anybody who's experienced that right now, okay? Just. And in fact, to be perfectly honest with you, in the 20 years I have been networking, even back when I believed that networking was sales, I have never once sold to anybody that I met at a networking event. Not once. So if I had continued to believe that definition, I'd be a really unhappy and frustrated person right now. You just noticed the baby in the so that's probably not the most effective definition. Now, another definition I've heard, and I have actually heard someone say this, is that networking is the process of taking advantage of other people without letting them know you're doing it. The people who believe this, they walk into the networking event and they're seeing a flock of sheep. And what they want to do is take one off to the side and turn it into mutton. You know, unfortunately, this can be successful in the short term, taking advantage of other people to get what you want. The problem is that eventually your reputation gets out there and it immediately goes downhill. So its effectiveness is kind of limited. The third definition is the one that I think is the most true. It's the one I learned from someone I respect tremendously. His name is Bob Berg. He wrote a great book on networking called The Go-Giver. And what he said is that networking is the process of developing long-term, mutually beneficial, give and take relationships. Long-term, mutually beneficial, give and take relationships. When someone who believes this walks into a networking event, they're not looking for sheep. They're looking for shepherds. They're looking for ambassadors. They're looking for allies. They're looking for friends. And I think over the long term, that's the most effective way of looking at networking. So for the purposes of our time together tonight, can we agree that that third one is probably the best definition? Well, okay, raise your hand. Who wants to follow the first definition and be a frustrated loser? Okay. We could follow the second definition and be basically a sociopath. Oh, yeah. There's always one. All right. Who is it consistently always all right. Who would like to follow the third path and make more friends and connections? Okay. That looks a little more promising. So, making connections. But now the question is, why bother? If you're not in sales or politics, why would you bother making connections? Why would you bother networking? I could spend a lot of time up here coming up with all these reasons, but guess what? You're going to do it for yourself. We're going to have a little competition. And I want to kind of gauge the audience here. Raise your hand if you're a little competitive. Okay. Raise your hand if you're a lot competitive. Okay. Raise your hand if in the last family game night you made someone cry. Okay. All right, I got a good feel for that here. So what you need to do is, first of all, look to the person next to you. They will be your partner, because this is a networking thing. We should be working with other people. So you will have a partner. You and your partner will have 3 minutes to come up with as many potential benefits of being well connected as possible. 3 minutes to come up with the highest number possible. And the winning group will each receive one of my CDs. I have had one group in one of my presentations came up with 23 benefits. That's the current record. There's a good chance, I think, we got a few competitive people here. You might go beyond that. So find your partner. You've got 3 minutes. Begin. Pens down. Figure out what your total is. If you wrote it on 2 different sheets, figure out the total that you have. And everybody stand up. Oh, no one told me there's going to be exercise. Oh. All right. If you have 0 on your list, sit down. There's always one. All right. If you have less than 5 on your list, sit down. Good. Less than 10, sit down. Less than 10. I know it's hard to be honest. That's okay. Less than 15. Okay, okay. How many do you have, guys? 16, okay. 16? 17, all right. Okay, you guys can sit down. These two. Now, the problem is I think we need to hear them, don't you? We got to keep them honest, right? Okay, so let's hear all 17, all 17. Nice and loud.
Yeah, it is.
All right, first one, job. Number 2.
Be proud, man. Be proud.
All right, so. All right, so, number 1, job. That's what I'll be a job. You can find jobs network. Number 2, money. That's right, because you can make money networking. 3, happiness. You can find happiness through networking. Number 3, you can have a career through networking. Number 5, friends. All of you are my friends. Through networking. Intimate relationships. Chicken bow wow. Cue 70s music. Opportunities? Yes. Find opportunities, like, just different things out there you didn't know existed. Opportunities. It's fun. Learn new skills. Sharpen old skills. Meet a spouse, which is opposed to intimate relations, because there's a
Keep moving.
PG boss.
I'm just keeping it real, y'all. All right, find a hobby, share a hobby, philanthropy. Through networking, you learn to put your money to good causes. This is what we do. Improve in community. Longer life. I read a survey once that said people who have more connectivity, who have things on LinkedIn, those people live longer. And improve mental health. Those people are also are crazy, and they tend to be beat people.
Let's keep moving along. 17, all right, good job. Let's give them a nice round of applause. Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations. All right, 17, not too bad. And one of the things I liked about it was there was business-oriented, there was getting careers or getting opportunities, but there's also social, philanthropic. I like that, very good. And I will admit, while this was not the record as far as numbers, I think it is the record for how long it took to actually read off a list. So, okay, but I have a question for you. How many, raise your hand if you had something that wasn't on their list?
We had higher quality answers.
The higher quality answers, okay. So there, beyond the 17, there are a lot of benefits of being well connected, right? So then the question arises, why do we feel so uncomfortable going to networking events where we're trying to connect with people? Why are we so uncomfortable? We have a lot of negative associations, right? People are going to be selling at us. We have to go out and talk to people. And, there's a lot of it, I think, that goes back to some underlying kind of programming we have in our heads. Finish the following phrases for me. Children should be seen and speak only when never talk to. Oh. That's programming. We've got pretty deep in there, isn't it? When did we learn that? How old? 3, 4, yes. We were pretty young, weren't we? Was it useful back then? Probably kept us safe. Yeah, well. The problem is now, when we want to go to those networking events, what are they full of? Strangers. And so we've got our parents in the back of our head going, never talk to strangers. It makes us uncomfortable walking in. But let's think about it for a second. I've got a daughter, actually I have 2 daughters. My 6-year-old, when she was a little younger, we used to take her to playgroups. She loved playgroups. She'd go and someone would read her a story, and sometimes there'd be a little snack, and there'd be toys to play with, and new friends to meet and go back to eventually and play with them again, which was great. Let's think about those networking events now. Usually there's someone there to tell you a story. There's often a snack, although they seem to be conspicuously absent right now. There may not be toys to play with, but sometimes there's new ideas to play with. And you meet new friends that you can go back and chat with again. Networking events are playgroups for adults. And the only real difference is what we're bringing in here. Sort of that mental model. So first thing we have to do is just get rid of that whole never talk to strangers thing, because that's not really useful for us. So let's start talking about some of the techniques that are going to make us comfortable going to those networking events, because that's really where it all starts out. And the first thing we need to do is make sure we're prepared properly. This dream, you've heard this dream before, where you show up for class and everybody's pulling out their blue book to take the test, and you realize that you don't have, do they still do blue books? Okay, just want to make sure, I'm old. So everybody's got you don't have a blue book, and in fact you realize you've not actually gone to class. Raise your hand if you had that dream. Raise your hand if you've done it in real life. Okay, good, man. All right. I was going to say, usually it's just me, but all right. So we want to be prepared. We want to make sure we have all the materials that we need to feel comfortable while we're there at the event. So one of the things I recommend to my clients is that you create a networking toolkit. Something that you set out in advance, the materials you set out in advance to make sure that you are ready to connect with the people that are at the event. All right, so thinking about this toolkit, what is the most important thing you can put in that toolkit? Business cards. Who says business cards? Most people do. I don't think so. And let me prove it to you, okay? Raise your hand if you've given out business cards. I just want to make sure that we've, okay, so pretty much everybody's given out business cards. Over the course of however long it takes you, let's say you give out 100 business cards. Raise your hand if you have 100 people contact you. No? 90. How about 90? 90? 50? 20? 10? Maybe 10? 5? 2? Maybe. Okay, so, but even at 10, you've got 90% failure on the making connections plan, right? So probably the business cards aren't the, yeah, I know you had 50, but I'm ignoring you. So you're one of those outliers that scientists get to throw out. And all right, so probably not the most important thing we can have on the list, all right, because it's not really helping us make the connections. The most important thing you can put on your list, number one for me, your schedule. Because our goal is to connect with other people. We want to be able to make it as easy as possible. Your schedule is the thing you should have with you. Almost everybody has them now. Either that or a day planner, whatever it is. So put that number one on the list. Number two, a pen. Because you meet with someone and you chat with them and they give you their business card. It might be nice to write down a little note on it to where you met them, when, and maybe what you promised to do for them, or just a couple things that you remember. So that pen is really useful. All right, next on the list, a notebook, small notebook. I don't have mine with me, but sometimes the card isn't big enough to fit everything you want to write down. Or sometimes there's just no room to write it down. Or sometimes it's black. Or sometimes it's made out of some sort of space-age polymer that you need to have an etching pen to actually make any sort of impression on. Have you received one of those cards? Honestly, I've seen ones where you can't even tear them. Yeah. So having that notebook to write down just those notes makes it kind of nice to remember what you want to do. Also, every once in a while, there's a speaker in front of the room dispensing pearls of wisdom. And if you have something to write down that information on, it's kind of handy too. All right, fourth thing on the list, business cards. I know what you're thinking. Well, you made a big deal about it not being important. Well, they are important. They're just not important for the reasons we think they are. There are 3.5 reasons to have your business cards. The first one, credibility. If someone asks you for your business card and you don't have one, it's a little question as to whether you're real, right? And there's almost no excuse to not have a business card. You can go to Vistaprint and get 250, how many? 200, I think it's 250 for the price of shipping. It's like $8, right? Something like that. So yeah, get your business cards. The second reason, and this is an important one, get ready to write this one down. Are you ready? Raffles. You go to the cupcake station and you put your card in, you might win a dozen cupcakes for the office. And if you work alone, third reason, it can spark a conversation. You gentlemen, you've got my business card taped to the back of those CD cases. What's my position?
Superhero in residence.
I cannot tell you the number of conversations I've had about that. I also get a few chat with me about my logo. You can see my logo up there in the corner. They're like, wow, that is really cool. How'd you come up with that idea? Want to hear the story? I needed a logo in about 15 minutes. I went, trees. Done. I got to come up with a better story. But it sparks a conversation. It makes the interaction a little bit easier. And the half a reason is that every once in a very great while, you will run into a real networker who, when they ask you for their card, for your card, will actually do something with it. Will actually contact you about 1% of the time. But you want to be ready for that. So yes, definitely bring those business cards. Fifth thing on the list, a business card holder. I have one that my wife got me from the Ann Arbor Art Fair. It's one of those things that you can actually afford at the Ann Arbor Art Fair. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't, yeah, it's either this or the copper butterfly on a stick. So it doesn't have to be this nice, but the idea is just keep your cards separate from the ones you are collecting. So that way you're not fumbling around. Remember, part of our goal here is to make ourselves as relaxed as possible. If you're shifting through your pockets or ladies, going through your purse trying to, oh, no, that's not me. That's not me. It makes you uncomfortable and uptight. Easy to reach in your pocket. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy. A rubber band or a paper clip will do just fine. Okay, next thing on the list is, what are we on, 6 now? 6. If you happen to have a permanent name tag, include it. Put it on that pile. Yeah, the man at the door has got it. All right. And the last thing on the list, it's going to sound silly, your clothes. Yeah. I always set up my stuff the night before because I've got 2 small children. And if I don't know where my shoes are when I go to bed at night, there's every chance that by the time I'm looking for them in the morning, someone has walked off with them. And have you ever tried to convince a 2-year-old to tell you where they put your shoes? Come on, sweetie, where'd you put daddy's shoes? I hungry. That's not helpful. Also, you want to make sure that those clothes match the culture of the event you're going to. You want to be remarkable, not bizarre. Okay? Remember, we're going for first impressions, and unfortunately, they count when it comes to networking. Okay, so that's the physical materials that you should have when you're going to a networking event. The one thing that you should always also have is a goal. Why are you going? Who's that really fast runner? It was in the last Olympics. Was it Usain Bolt? Was that his name? Sure, let's go with that. Usain Bolt. You know what? I can beat him in a race. It's true. I'm just not going to tell him where the finish line is. Going to a networking event without a goal in mind is like trying to run a race without knowing where the finish line is. You feel like you're doing a lot of, but you're not actually knowing when you're done. But having a goal in mind, now listen, when I'm working, I often work with people who are in the tech industry, and again, we're not socially skilled, so often their goals are, listen, show up early, find the coat room, the restroom, and the buffet line, introduce yourself to one person, and you are done with your networking. Yeah, it's low-hanging fruit, but it gets them started. As you become more sophisticated in your networking, your goals should be more sophisticated. Personally, I like to meet with 2 or 3 people, chat with them for at least 5 minutes, find out more about them, and determine whether or not it makes sense for us to meet afterward. Not particularly complicated, but that way I know when I'm done. When I'm done, when I've completed that goal, that's when I get to go to the buffet line. That's when I get to go and chat with the people I already know. Or that's when I can go home if I'm not feeling particularly networky that night. Now, I actually have a friend, her goal when she goes to networking events is to meet with at least 5 people, chat with them, find out what their challenges are for the upcoming year, and connect them with someone who can help them with those challenges. That's networking on a scale that's like Mount Everest. I don't think I'll ever get there, but it gives you an idea of some of the things you could try to do. All right, so make sure you have that goal in mind before you walk in. That way you'll know when you're successful. All right, so you actually get to the event. You're all excited because you're prepared. You've got all your stuff ready. And then you walk in, and what's all waiting for you there? Strangers. Now you have to. I'm really sorry to have to break this to you. You actually have to have a conversation with some of them. Otherwise, you're not connecting. One of the most common questions I get is, how do I break into these groups? Because everyone's already in clumps in their groups, and so how do you break into that? Well, first of all, go for the smallest group possible. Okay? What's the smallest group possible? One. Yeah, look for the poor guy standing off to the side. Be the hero. Pretend you're the host. Pretend you're running the thing. Make them comfortable. Are they a bad person to connect with? Not necessarily. They could be the CEO of a company. They're just not comfortable walking into the middle of a huge crowd of people. Go for that one. That makes it easy. Okay, let's suppose there aren't any ones. So the next larger group is? Oh, right, can't get anything past this group. So with two, you have to be a little bit more careful. You have to watch for body language. Would you be willing to help me out with something?
Sure.
I didn't get your name.
Adam.
Adam?
Yep.
Nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet you.
All right, come on up here. So if Adam and I are chatting shoulder to shoulder, facing the room, this is an open conversation. You can feel free to walk up and just join in. It's not a big deal. You're not interrupting anything. Now, if Adam and I are facing squared off to each other, this is a private conversation. If you try to interrupt this, then you are not forming a connection. You're being an irritation. All right? If we are shoulder to shoulder facing away from the room, we're planning a bank heist. Don't bother us. Okay? Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. Let's give him a round of applause. Okay. Now suppose there are no ones and the twos are all planning bank heists. Next one up is threes. So threes, again, you're watching for the body language. If they're closed off, it's not going to be, that's a private conversation you don't want to interrupt. Now the nice thing is, as the groups get larger, it gets easier to break in. Because really all you got to do is walk up and kind of, oh, I'm part of the group now. The problem is, what are we trying to do as a part of this process? What are we trying to do? Form relationships. We're trying to connect. Can you connect with a group? Not really. You can connect with one other person. So we're always looking to have one-on-one conversations. That's what we want. So always look for that smaller group. Or sometimes it works that the larger groups will break up and then suddenly you find yourself in a one-on-one conversation, and that's great. Okay, so now we've learned how to approach the group. Now we have to have that opening line. I have been working in my networking for about 20 years now, so I have tried line after opening line just to figure out what's the best one, the one that's going to give me the best results. Would you like to know the one that I found that works about 99% of the time?
Oh, hello.
You spoiled my joke. Yes, it's hello. Walk up. Hi, Greg Peters.
Adam Dennison.
Nice to meet you.
Meet you.
Excellent. I mean, this is a conversation. It's not rocket surgery. All you have to do is walk up and say hello. Pretend they're a human being. Okay? Thank you so much. You knew the answer already, so okay. What was that?
What do you say next?
Oh, all right. Thank you for feeding that one to me, Aaron. I appreciate it. All right. So what do you say next? Okay. Well, now we're talking about we've broken in. We've actually started the conversation. Now we have to maintain it. We have to continue that conversation. Yes, this is where it gets interesting because a lot of people, they're always worried about, well, what am I going to say? Right? Okay. Remember, your idea is you are trying to connect with them. If you spend all your time talking, are you connecting? No. The most important thing, the most important skill you need to have right now, we are going to demonstrate right now. And the person who can successfully demonstrate it wins a CD. Yay. At the beginning of this presentation, I told you I went down to Atlanta, Georgia. Raise your hand and tell me why. Dragon Con. Yes, the man is paying attention. All right. What's your name?
Jim.
Jim. Nice to meet you, Jim. Let's give him a round of applause. All right. Why did Jim know that? He's the boss. Okay. No. Why? What skill was he using? Listening. He was paying attention. He was listening to what I was saying and listening to what was important to me. So we need to pay attention to them. And the best thing we can do now is ask questions. Ask questions. All right, what's the question they always say? Don't ask this question because it's so cliched. No one should ever ask this question. What's the question?
What's your sign?
What's your sign? No, not what's your sign. What are you, from the 1970s?
That's the worst question.
Okay, that's it. So what's the one you're not supposed to ask? What do you do? What do you do? Because it's boring. It's cliched. You know what? Cliched and boring works really well. All right. So Adam, what do you do?
GM is PR.
Work in GM as PR. Okay. See, that works really well. The problem is, if I do that, so what do you do?
PR.
It's got to go beyond that. It's the question you ask afterward that makes it a conversation. So how long have you been doing that?
7 years.
What got you into it?
I was an intern.
Ah, okay. So we can go on from there. I can keep asking, do you enjoy doing it?
I do it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Opportunity to build relationships.
This is like one of the most succinct open question answerers I've ever run into. I've had people that are like, you need to stop talking now. But this guy is just like, okay, you got the short answer. But the idea is to ask them the open-ended questions so they can find out more about them. So how did you find that internship? Who connected you with it? If they've been doing anything that they've been doing for longer than 3 years, I love to ask them, so has anything really changed since you started? I guarantee if they've been working for anything longer than 3 years, huge changes have happened, right? Who's been working wherever they are for longer than 3 years? Has anything changed in your business in the last 3 years? Yeah. They get to suddenly be the experts, and you are learning a very important thing about them. The important thing you are learning about them is, could you stand to be sitting across from them for a longer period of time? You need to learn whether you like this person or not. Truly, do you think you could have an effective networking relationship with someone who you really didn't like? Not really, because you'll have people you do like that you want to spend all your time helping, and you'd never really help the person you don't care about. So the goal here is to find out and to make sure that you're actually comfortable with them. You have a little bit of chemistry with them, so that you can actually have a longer conversation, a coffee, as it were. Okay, so now you are a conversational king, or queen, as the case may be. What's your next problem?
Ending.
What was that?
Ending the conversation.
Ending it, yes, because now they're uncomfortable, remember, so they've found someone who's actually asking about their favorite topic in the entire world, which is themselves, right? And by the way, if you exhaust the whole business aspect of thing, or what you do for a living, the next fun thing you can ask them is, so what do you do when you're not selling widgets? And then ask all those, how did you get into it, and what's changed in the last 3 years, and et cetera, et cetera. You can actually continue this conversation for as long as you possibly want to. But again, the problem is that, Adam is a little nervous, and so he's really happy that someone's talking to him, and he's going to hold on to my arm because now he doesn't have to go talk to anybody else. I was at a networking event one time, and a friend of mine introduced me to another gentleman, and he proceeded to tell me about his business for 45 minutes. 45 minutes of him telling me about his product and how it was the best thing on the market, how it was going to change the world and save people's lives, and it was just going to make him so much money, et cetera, et cetera. I was going to have to gnaw my own arm off to get away from him. First of all, don't be that guy. But we need to find you're not that person, are you? No. Wow. It's bad when the finger's pointed right at you. Okay.
But the junior chamber is going to do all those things, so it's okay.
Okay, all right. So what we need to do is just get out of it. And of course, there's the ever popular, I need to go refresh my drink. The problem was, of course, they might follow you. Then, of course, there's I need to go use the restroom. The problem is they might follow you, and if they're of a different gender, that can be really awkward. One of the ones I've heard people use that I'm not particularly comfortable with is, oh, I see Bob across the room. Excuse me, I need to go talk with them privately. Just excuse me. the problem is you're kind of leaving that other person high and dry, aren't you? It's not really nice. And really, aren't you lying? Because you didn't really have to talk to Bob. You just were looking for an excuse to get away from them. The best mechanism I've found is, what's your name?
Veronica.
Veronica? Veronica, I have had a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you need to do some more networking yourself. Is there anyone I could introduce you to here? Wow, I suddenly made her important. Or, Veronica, I'm kind of new here. Is there anyone I should be talking to? You'd be willing to introduce me to? Asking them for help or offering to help them is a great way to break off the conversation. I don't recommend, however, that you ask for their business card and as a mechanism to get away from them. I've been doing this for many, many, many years. I know that the chances of someone calling me back after they ask for me for my card is pretty much nil. But still, when someone asks me for my card, I go, oh, they like me. I don't wait by the phone anymore. But still, you don't want to be the person who disappoints someone else. You two are having way too much fun there. So, if all else fails, if none of these techniques work, there's always security. Do what you have to do. All right, so we've gotten out of that conversation. Now we need to do one thing which most people, about 95% of people, fail at with regards to their networking. You must follow up. You must follow up. You cannot develop a great relationship 5 minutes at a time, once a month in a crowded room. All right? I need a volunteer for this next piece. I need, raise your hand if you own a car. Okay, keep your hand up if you actually like your car. Okay, and keep it up if you'd actually like to continue playing along. You put their hands down. All right, Josh, you want to work with me, buddy? Sure. You can stay right there. You don't have to do anything. Okay, all right. Josh, what kind of car is it?
It's a Ford Fusion.
Ford Fusion. Okay, not a bad car. What year?
2014.
Nice, brand new, huh? Okay.
20 days.
Wow. Okay, so Josh and I are having a conversation at a networking event. Okay, we're just chit-chatting. We're kind of feeling that possibility of a future professional relationship. Okay, got that little chemistry going. I step, Josh. What kind of car do you drive?
It's a 2014 Ford.
Oh, okay. Josh, I need to head down to Toledo tonight. Could I borrow your car?
Right now.
Dude, we've been talking for like 5 minutes,
I'll go with you.
So you're not feeling really comfortable with lending me your car, right? Despite our long relationship of 5 minutes. Okay. Josh, are there people in your life who you would allow to drive your car?
Yes.
Okay. I'm guessing, though, that they are people you have developed a long relationship, probably more than 5 minutes at a time, once a month in a crowded room.
Probably.
Yeah, like days or at least hours. These are good friends and family, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Josh, I've got an important question for you. It is not a trick question. It is an important one. Are you ready?
Yes.
Josh, which is more important? Your car or your reputation?
My reputation.
Oh, good. He answered it right. I've actually had people go, one guy said, I don't know, they're both in pretty bad shape. Yeah, of course, we value our reputation more than any material object, right? So if he's unwilling to lend me his car after a 5-minute conversation, why would he lend me his reputation? And referrals and all those other things that we want to get are someone basically putting their reputation on the line for us. We need to develop longer relationships. And that means following up. Now, we feel a little uncomfortable doing that because suddenly we're sitting across from someone having coffee that we may have only met for 5 minutes. We need to find a better way to have those conversations that are a little deeper. I came up with a system called the INFER process. I-N-F-E-R. INFER. The I stands for their interests. What do they like to do when they are not selling widgets? The cool thing about this is you can actually discover that you have something in common. and suddenly things disappear. I was chatting with a financial planner, kind of looked like Grant over there with the suit and tie, the whole bit, and I don't normally wear a suit and tie, so I was feeling a little out of my depth. And then I discovered that he was a big fan of Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, and me too. Yeah, raise your hand, Battlestar Galactica, be proud. Oh, okay, yeah. The nerds, all right. And suddenly it was like we were suddenly like brothers because we shared this common interest. Now it can happen that they don't share your interest. Maybe they're into alpine chainsaw juggling and that's not your thing. But it's still okay because you can connect them with that interest. You can say, hey, I heard about this chainsaw juggling convention coming to town. I wanted to let you know about it. Does your friend know that the chainsaw juggling convention is coming to town? Yeah. Chainsaw jugglers, pretty close-knit community. They have their own secret handshake. But the fact that you remembered this about him makes it a personal connection. All right, so I is their interest. N is their networks. Where do they go to be successful? You can bring them as a guest to some place that you know would be helpful to them. They could bring you as a guest. Something can be helpful to you. You're making them into a hero because what are most groups always looking for? People, new members, guests. So you get to help them out by connecting them with that success. F is their future focus. We have to be a little careful with this. On a first meeting, if we've only known them for 5 minutes, we don't want to sit down across the coffee table and say, so tell me, what are your plans for the rest of your life? That's creepy, it's wrong, don't do it. Part of a normal conversation might be, though, what are your plans for the holidays? What are the challenges you think you're going to have in the upcoming year? You can help them achieve their goals or avoid their challenges. They'll do the same for you in return. E stands for their epic journey or their evolution. How did they get from where they were to where they are, and why? Why is the important part. I was chatting with Catherine a little earlier. Suppose I found out that there was a job in the Lions organization for a marketing expert. I could say, you want to talk to Catherine. She's a good marketing expert. Is that a good recommendation? You want to talk to Catherine. Football is in her blood. Her grandfather played for Notre Dame. She is the biggest fan since she was 7 years old. She would do an amazing job for this organization. Who'd like to have that sort of recommendation said about them? Obviously, for you, not about the Lions thing. All right, so that's why we want to know about their past. Okay, R is their relationships. We have to be even more careful about this one because we are intensely protective of our relationships. But the best networkers I know look for ways to help the family, help the kids get into a good school, help the parents find a good long-term health care. Whatever it is, that's the way they do it. All right. May I have 5 minutes to do this test? Sure. All right. We are going to actually do an infer process right now. You will see how powerful it is. Turn to your partner. You will have 4 minutes to perform an infer. 4 minutes. Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, if we can come back together again. I know it's ironic me telling you to stop networking. Well, that's okay. That's okay. All right, come back together again. If you can hear my sound of my voice, please clap once. Well, you're faster than my daughter's kindergarten class was, so good job. All right. Did you find out something about the person, something new about the person sitting next to you? Yes. Who is sitting next to someone who worked with someone who they already knew? Okay. Did you two find out new things about each other? We did. I've had people who've known each other for decades who still find out something new about each other using this system. Because most of our conversations are about the weather and what happened over the weekend. They're very surface conversations. Now, I should tell you though, if you look at the top of the page, there's a QR code, or at the bottom there's a URL. You can go to a page where you can actually download this form. Please, please, please understand, this is not a government form. Do not show up to coffee and go, let's see if we can knock this puppy out. Do not hand it to them and tell them to fill it out. It's a guideline for conversation. Now, that said, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea to have a way of recording the information so that the next time you meet with them, and there should always be a next time, you can say, you know what, I haven't found out what their goals are for this year. I got to remember to ask them about it this time. So it's just one more mechanism that we can reach out and get a deeper connection with the people we're with. So at the end of all this, you've heard where I came from and some of the benefits that I've gotten out of this. You come up with a whole list of benefits that you can have for being well connected. We've learned some of the tools tonight. Now you have to do it. So I challenge you to actually go out, take the tools we've worked on, make some connections. Start building that web of relationships that's going to support you. And know that while you're doing it, you're building a resource that's going to make you successful and significant in your life. Thank you.
Thanks so much.